Broadside Books and HarperAudio present The Authoritarian Moment, How the Left Weaponized America's Institutions Against Dissent, by Ben Shapiro. This is the author. A note before we begin. Don't forget to download the accompanying enhancement PDF from your audiobook provider or go directly to www.harpercollins.com/audio/authoritarian moment. The enhancement contains the book's endnotes. To my children, who deserve to grow up in a country that values the freedoms promised by the Declaration of Independence and guaranteed by our Constitution. Introduction. According to the institutional powers that be, America is under authoritarian threat. That authoritarian threat to America, according to the Democratic Party, establishment media, social media tech bros, Hollywood glitterati, corporate bosses, and university professors, is clear, and it comes directly from the political right. And that authoritarian threat, according to those who control vast swaths of American life, manifested itself most prominently on January 6th, 2021. On that day, hundreds, if not thousands, of rioters broke away from a far larger group of pro-Trump peaceful protesters and stormed the United States Capitol, many seeking to do violent harm to members of Congress and the Vice President of the United States. Their goal, to overturn the legally constituted results of the 2020 election. The images from January 6th were indeed dramatic, and the rioters of January 6th did indeed engage in acts of criminal evil. Pictures of barbarians dressed in buffalo horns and idiots carrying Trump flags and military gear-clad fools carrying zip cuffs made the front pages globally. Sitting congresspeople and the Vice President of the United States were rushed to safety, shielding themselves from the droogs beyond. All Americans of goodwill on all political sides decried the January 6th riots. Vice President Pence personally oversaw the counting of the electoral votes. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, condemned the rioters as vile cretins, then moved forward to the certification of the election. But according to the left, the January 6th riots weren't merely an act of universally condemned criminality. They were the culmination of right-wing authoritarianism. Jonathan Chait of New York Magazine wrote, "We entrusted a sociopathic, instinctive authoritarian with the most powerful office in the world. What did we think would happen?" Paul Krugman of the New York Times suggested, "One of our major political parties has become willing to tolerate and, indeed, feed right-wing political paranoia. The GOP has reached the culmination of its long journey away from democracy, and it's hard to see how it can ever be redeemed." Greg Sargent of the Washington Post explained, "Trump's GOP has an ugly authoritarian core." Lisa McGurr wrote in the New York Times, "Republicans will certainly seek to pivot from the riot, but the nativism, extreme polarization, truth-bashing, white nationalism, and anti-democratic policies that we tend to identify with President Trump are likely to remain a hallmark of the Republican playbook into the future." "If you voted for Trump," said Don Lemon of CNN, "you voted for the person who the Klan supported. You voted for the person who Nazis support. You voted for the person the alt-right supports. That's the crowd that you are in. You voted for the person who incited a crowd to go into the Capitol and potentially take the lives of lawmakers." Score settling would be necessary. Charles Blow of the New York Times asked, "What do we do now as a society and as a body politic? Do we simply turn the page and hope for a better day? Let bygones be bygones? Or do we seek some form of justice to hold people accountable for taking this country to the brink?" Joy Reid of MSNBC called for de-Baathification, a la the post-Iraq War purge of Saddam Hussein's military. Indeed, the American left argued, the greatest threat to America's future came from right-wing authoritarianism, which, naturally, the left conflated with white supremacy and conservative philosophy. To fail in the quest of ridding America of this threat would spell the end of the Republic. Authoritarianism had to be stopped. But what if the most dangerous authoritarian threat to America wasn't the several hundred evil conspiracists, fools, and criminals who breached the Capitol? What if the most dangerous authoritarian threat to the country wasn't a properly despised group of agitators making asses of themselves by charging into the Hall of Democracy, variously dressed in military gear, animal skins, and buffalo horns? What if the primary threat to American liberty lies elsewhere? What if, in fact, the most pressing authoritarian threat to the country lies precisely with the institutional powers that be, in the well-respected centers of journalism, in the gleaming towers of academia, in the glossy offices of the Hollywood glitterati, in the cubicles of Silicon Valley, and the boardrooms of our corporate behemoths? What if the danger of authoritarianism, in reality, lies
Sample complete. Ready to continue?